Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Reengineering the Chess Classic series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and in this video we are taking a look at some more games of the Austro-Hungarian player Carl Schlechter. So this game is Carl Schlechter's game as black against Frank Marshall from Monte Carlo 1904. So Monte Carlo had a number of excellent tournaments. This was the last one. Apparently, just reading a few accounts there, it looks like the organizer was a bit fed up with all the criticism he was getting for various decisions he made, and so cancelled this great series of tournament. But this one was still pretty strong. It was a six-player all-play-all double round, and actually Marshall was really sort of going for first place really, but he said that in the last round he had a perpetual check, and because they were playing in a casino he was sort of filled with gambling spirit, gambled and lost, and Moroxi won first prize and Schlechter ended second. Well, that gambling spirit is evident because in this game as well, this time it's Carl Schlechter who refuses a draw by repetition, plays all out, and, well, amazing things happen. Let's have a look at the game. So the opening was quite interesting. It was a Tarrasch defense. And then in this game Marshall played e4, which was one of his specialities. Not that great really, but quite interesting, you know. So the game proceeded and we reached this position. In actual fact the players had indulged in a sort of a draw by repetition. Bishop e7 was played. Queen e7 not possible because of queen h2 checkmate. But after queen g3, Schlechter played bishop d6, queen h4, bishop e7, queen g3. And yeah, Schlechter has a reputation as a very drawish player. I think it's not correct, to be honest. But in this case, he didn't go for the draw by repetition. He played the move f4. The interesting thing now is that the engines say plus 2.57 for white immediately. So they really don't like this decision at all. The big problem, you often do see it in actual fact, is that an f-pawn on f4 or for white f5 is often something that really gets in the way of an attack against the opponent's king. And well, here for example it's blocking the b8 h2 diagonal, so yeah, kind of tough to make any threats along there. And essentially what happens here is that, you know, black's position is very loose. I mean all these pieces, open e-file, possibility for moves like d6, knight on e4 coming into f6. I mean, black's position is really quite big, quite exposed, and quite loose. So black really needs to have something really happening very, very quickly here, and simply he doesn't have it, so his position is bad. So queen f3 played, and now knight e5. Yeah, the engine's looking to play a move like bishop f6, but yeah, after queen d1, a very nice move. We're still threatening h takes g4 here. Takes. Black's got some difficulties here. For example, knight f6, we go d6, queen b6, queen c4, picking up a pawn, king g7, rook d1, and, well, you know, black's got no kingside attack, and you've just got a good extra pass d pawn. So yeah, quite difficult for black this position, but obviously Schlechter doesn't know that his evaluation is minus 2.57 for his position. And I mean, I wouldn't guess that much. I might be sort of, you know, a little bit tense with black, I think, in this position, thinking, oh, I hope it's all okay and that I'm not going to end up just destroying my own position. But yeah, he played knight e5, which is the obvious attacking move. And now Marshall played something, well, maybe slightly strange here, queen e2. Obviously, you know, it's an obvious move to attack the knight on e5, but you're also putting the queen a bit in the way of f3 somehow. Queen d1 is quite interesting, because if you go f3, well, as long as you spot this move, rook e1, hitting the knight on e5, little intermezzo, then you're doing quite well. Obviously fg, just take on e5, no problems. If you go bishop d6, I play the move g3, and yeah, again, there's some small tactics that make all of this possible. If bishop h3, I go knight b5, which is really horrible. I'm going to take on d6, take on e5. And if you play a move like knight d3, which might be interesting, I go bishop takes d3. If If you go CD, I go knight e4, which is a great move, covering the g3 square, also threatening knight f6. If you try and blast through with bishop g3, then this move is quite powerful, d6, because after all, if you go queen d6, bishop c4, and well, you know, the loose black king is going to be, well, it's going to be curtains for him, basically. Bishop takes d6, I go knight d5, again, very similar. Yeah, this is the engine way of finishing it off, knight e7 and bishop c4, again, you know, all that power. So, yeah, I mean, just some real precision was needed here, I think, basically after knight e5. Queen d1, rook e1, that's the right way to do it, and the whole black position is too loose, really. You know, I mean, I think I can often say that I think the big difference, if you're looking at modern players and classical players, I think these moments of precision were often ones that the classical players got wrong. Brilliant tactical imagination very often, but yeah, that structured crunching through variations, that wasn't really a skill that was really mastered in the you know, in the 1900s somehow. Yeah, queen e2 played, and bishop d6 from Schlechter. Now, yeah, the engines like the move f3 very much. They're not seeing as big an advantage as you know, after queen d1, rook e1, but they like this very much. I mean, basically, you know, this pawn is, as I've said, is just blocking the black kingside attack. And now, you know, you've got a past d pawn, nice e4 square coming in, you know, it's just very pleasant. It's, again, you know, the engines are giving this, you know, like some really big advantage for white. It's not as clear to me as that, but b5, knight e4, knight d3, queen b3, you know, we're threatening stuff like d6, queen c3, rook d1, picking this up. I mean, it's black desperately trying to keep some counterplay going and do stuff, you know, and yeah, Stockfish was managing to hold some of these, but it's pretty unpleasant, really. Rook e1, though, was played by Marshall. f3, queen e3, and the whole board is on fire, of course. But at least black has managed to get this f3 in with gain of tempo, which means that, well, you know, squares around the king are going to be weak, you know, and actually once you've got this move f3 in, you don't really mind, do you, about losing a pawn because, well, you know, the king's exposed. So Schlechter played knight d3. Bishop takes d3, and now a strange period of play from Schlechter, because he had the chance to play a lot of moves with lots of gain of tempo, and what he actually did was play them but without any gain of tempo. It's just a very strange. I don't really know what he was thinking about there, because, you know, this is something I'd completely expect a player of his class just to play immediately, you know, somehow. But I mean, what am I talking about? Well, the point is you can go bishop check, king h1. And then fg. Just make sure that you're taking on g2 with check, so white's got no alternative. And then you put the bishop on f4 with gain of tempo, and then you take on d3 again with gain of tempo, and now it's your move. And yeah, the engines are saying something like queen d6 here, just blocking d6, stopping knight e4 because of queen d5. And yeah, you know, I mean, white can try and grab an extra pawn like that. But we go bishop e5. We've got plenty of counterplay against this king, and you know, the engines basically just held this you know, pretty easily as black. It's quite decent compensation for the two pawns. You know, we can even look at stuff playing like rook f5 to g5. I mean, it could be very dangerous for white as well. But what Schlechter did was really odd. He took on d3. So we take on d3, and then he takes on g2, not even, you know, throwing in that check at all. Well, you know, the engines just think, well, white's just completely winning here, and yeah, it doesn't make any sense really what Schlechter did here, or maybe he just sort of only cottoned on to the correct defensive formation later. And here the best move for white is the obvious one, knight e4, basically aiming for knight f6 check. And after bishop f5, now we go queen e3, which is what Marshall played later. And yeah, you know, of course, we're just threatening to go knight f6. So bishop e4 played, queen e4, rook f7, queen e6. And it's pretty clear that white's doing very well here. We'll take that pawn on g2. We'll be a pawn up. And, well, you know, this sort of attacking formation, it just ties up the black pieces completely. You're not going to be able to get at the white king if your pieces are so tied up like that. So, yeah, just knight e4 was very simple. But Marshall, I mean, Marshall's, he was always really confusing, going for unusual stuff. I mean, he was always on the lookout for interesting tactics, very tactically creative player. So he was attracted by the idea of bringing the queen onto h6 first. So that's what he went. So a little check here. I do wonder about that check. I'm not quite sure why you force white there to take the pawn. Surely the pawn on g2 would be easier. But I think that Schlechter was sort of thinking about getting some bishop h3 check ideas sometimes. He thought the king was going to be more exposed on there. I'm not 100% sure about that. Marshall went queen e7, threatening mate, rook f7, and queen h4. And actually, well, you can sort of tell this maneuver hasn't been amazingly successful. Queen e3, queen e7, queen h4. Yeah, I mean, it's not looking great for white there. But now that we needed some good defense here, and the engines give this lovely idea: g5, queen h5, and queen d6. Again, this move queen d6. Just hitting the pawn on d5, so we're stopping knight e4. Obviously, we play this move g5 because if we went something like queen here, then queen d8 would be a little bit worrying. At least, there's all sorts of reasons why this could be tricky somehow. So g5, g5 is a good idea there. Queen h5, queen d6, and some interesting play there. King h1 was the engine move. Maybe looking for something like rook g1 or something. And now something that I don't 100% understand. But queen a6, looking for queen d3 maybe. And after knight e4, there's this amazing idea: queen a5, hitting the rook on e1 and hitting the pawn on d5. So the knight goes back to c3. We go queen a6, king g2, queen d6. A real engine game somehow. King h1, queen a6, knight e4, and then queen d6 back. Incredible. But I mean, basically, the engine seemed to feel that the black had got this kind of under control, and that there's not really that much that white can do. Pawn's pieces are too weak somehow. Schlechter played a slightly odd move in a way. He played the move bishop d2 here, which feels all wrong, to be honest. I mean, you're putting a bishop from unprotected to loose, and I don't know. I mean, I imagine that Schlechter wanted to play queen f4, maybe exchange off queens. That was the idea that I had, but Marshall reacted very sharply with knight e4. Now the engines don't think that's necessarily required, although it's a very strong move. They were also looking at rook e2. That was dragon. Rook e4 was the stockfish idea, but I think that knight e4 is just a really good move here. So if you take on e1, we go knight f6 check. King f8, and the engines seem to feel that this one is actually okay for black. But so bishop e3 is a very nice move, looking for bishop h6 and then some sort of discovered attack, and then the desperado bishop f2. So if you take on f2 with a bishop, we're distracting you away from h6. And if you go queen f2, there's a few different ideas, but g5 was what the engines wanted. Bishop g5 and queen d6. And we've got all sorts of ideas, rook g7 ideas in there, queen's attacking pawn on d5, so we could even look for rook f6 at some stage, queen d5 at times. It was sort of felt to be a decent sort of defense for black there. So bishop e1 was really necessary. Schlechter, though, played a great little move. He played the move g5. So that same idea that we saw in the previous move, but Schlechter throwing it in. And what's the idea? Well, knight takes g5 was played by Marshall, and you're going to see what Schlechter's idea was. It's quite cool, but still shouldn't be enough. But queen h6 was the engine idea. That's what they wanted, and the idea is just to follow up with knight f6 check, which is going to be very, very difficult. There's a bit of a desperado sacrifice, bishop h3, and then queen e1 just to draw the queen away. But then we come in with queen e6, king f8, check, knight f6. and this is a very difficult position for black. This bishop feels a bit loose. We've got queen h8 takes h7 coming in. It's not opposite coloured bishops, it's same coloured bishops. This pawn's going to be weak in those sort of endings, so yeah, it's a very difficult position for black. Marshall played knight g5, and then Schlechter's idea here was queen d8. Gorgeous idea, just hitting the knight on g5, still hitting the rook on e1. And again, Marshall really should have just chosen the simple choice, but he couldn't resist himself, I think, and decided to go for the tricky, flashy, tactical thing. The best move simply is rook e5, defending the knight on g5 in the simplest way. And after bishop f4, we go queen h6, and after bishop e5, we throw in knight takes f7. And well, queen f6, bishop e5, queen f7, king g3, getting out of queen takes d5 check. And well, in this opposite coloured bishop ending, white's 2 pawns up and the queens are on. It's just a complete win. You can't defend this sort of thing with black here. So that would have been really, really easy, simply. And if you played a move like rook g7, trying to add a bit more attack there, then simply f4 is just winning for white. So that would have been really simple, but Marshall, yeah, again, it's tactical imagination, but not really precision somehow. He played rook g1. I mean, to be honest, I often feel that the standard of these guys at classical was kind of equal to the standard of the elite players at some sort of rapid somehow, quick rapid chess somehow. You see the same, because again in those sort of rapid games, I always feel that the elite guys, they prioritize creative, tricky above precision. Yeah, you don't have the big time to calculate precisely. So I often feel that the level is kind of that's quite a comparable level of elite players against top classical players of the 1900s, 1910s. So bishop g5 played, and then king h1. So just getting out of the way. And I mean, this looks very, very dangerous, right? I mean, you go h6, I go queen h6. But there's this lovely little move, rook g7. So we're blocking the pin. And after bishop g7, I go bishop h4, bishop f6 check, discovered, but we go king f7, takes, bishop d8, and we've got this very interesting endgame, rook and 2 pawns, but broken pawns against 2 bishops. And this basically seems to be equal, and actually the engines were pretty in agreement with how Schlechter played, and Marshall as well, or at least didn't particularly feel there was anything serious to report. f4 played so that Marshall can bring his king in. Obviously bishop f4 allows rook f1. So bishop f5, king g3, bishop d6, rook e1, bishop d7. I mean, the bishops are very, very solid there, but there's no sort of passed pawns that the 2 bishops could get behind and push to the exclusion of the rook. I mean, yeah, it's just not going to happen. So I don't know whether I'd have played Marshall's moves here, but they were fine enough. The engine's just seeing draws everywhere. Rook c1, bishop g4, and well, the game was agreed drawn eventually at some moment like this. I've played a few engine games afterwards, so they've maybe carried on a few moves, but yeah, just a very a clear draw there somehow. But I like this middle game an awful lot. It's really quite spectacular, and particularly this move g5, knight g5, queen d8. And everything's hanging and pins and attacks against h7. Everything. It's really, really nice. And well, Marshall's move rook g1 was imaginative, but not the best. After takes king h1, rook g7. Just a really nice tactical sequence. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you're enjoying this trip down memory lane, back to the 1900s again, and Carl Schlechter. Yeah, I mean, it's what Reengineering the Chess Classics is really all about. So if you're enjoying this, do take a look at our book. It's also got some quite unique formatting, where the typesetters decided that they would have dual typesettings. So you've got the normal flow of the game with all the text explanations. They're all in one font, and then the more complicated, maybe some engine lines or engine games, they're in a slightly different font. You can really tell the difference. You could just run through the book looking only at the text explanations, basically, or you can delve into the variations. Some amazing engine games in those lines to have a bit of fun, like that. So that's the textbook, and of course, looking at it on Forward Chess would be an absolutely great idea. And coincidentally enough, I'm the Forward Chess Forward Chess Author of the Month for August. So there are special deals on all these books. So if you ever want to use Forward Chess, which I'd thoroughly recommend, it's fantastic, then do take a look at that. You can get it with a reduction as well. But anyway, thanks very much for watching the video. Hope you enjoy it, and come back to this channel for more great human games and great engine games, and some super explanations as well from me. Thanks very much.